sounds like we are live. We'll be getting started here momentarily for those of you that are starting to hop on with us. Perfect, and I see that we're live. It's all working, so we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. We've got a full agenda that we want to share with everyone. Of course, we have the opportunity of getting started with the week, every week with our mayor, who gives us a nice overview of what's happened in the last week and also a big picture of what's going on today and hopefully over the next several days as well. I am Juliette Abdel, your Chamber President and CEO, and if this is your very first time on our page, I want to thank you for getting engaged and starting to learn about all the resources and services, and more importantly, the information that's out there. So make sure that you hit the like button on this page, that you're also following us with those timely notifications. We're on all things social media, so if you are not already following us or engaged, we're on Twitter and Instagram at Westy Chamber, on LinkedIn at Westminster Chamber of Commerce, and YouTube, where we are sharing this video on that platform at the very same time. The YouTube page is Westminster Chamber of Commerce. Now, we always get questioned about, all of these social media pages, you're probably sharing the same messaging. Every page is a different audience, which means that we are sharing a different perspective on program services and everything that we want you to know. So you really do have to get engaged with us on all of those social media pages. If you're a returning viewer, then I thank you for being with us since March of 2020. I cannot believe that it's been a year and nearly 6 months since we started these broadcasts. And I want to thank you and also continue to encourage you to hit the share button on this video so others in your network can see that we're live, can basically stop what they're doing on this Monday morning and get this update from our mayor, hear the information that we have, and get a chance to ask questions in real time. Now, I know a lot of you are already starting to tune in, and the best way that I know how to give you a quick hello or a shout out is if I ask you to do this. You can either comment on this video, good morning pleasantries, remarks. You can use that chat section to ask us any comments or questions on the information that we share. If we don't touch on anything and you were hoping that we would, type that into the chat section so that we can have the mayor put that on her radar moving forward. And then, of course, if you are not comfortable displaying a comment or question, you can give us a reaction to this video, and you can do that by hitting a thumbs up, a heart emoji, any of those, so that we know that you're with us and we'll stop and recognize you along the way. I already see Angela with us giving us a nice good morning message. Thank you for tuning in, Angela. And of course, we have our current board chairman, Wayne Anderson, giving us a message as well of a good morning. He's tuning in from our YouTube channel. Now, Mayor, I know I kicked this off a little bit early, so I didn't bleed into your time. I want to transition and allow for you to get started with your updates so that we can go forward and have a chance to answer some questions along the way.
Thanks so much, Juliette, and it's great to be back here after a week off. I hope everyone enjoyed having Paul Schmeeken from the city talk about our SAGE program last week. These are my famous last words. I don't think I have a very large update to give you guys, so there should be ample time for questions and conversation. As always, I like to kind of kick off this discussion with what did we do last week as City Council, and it was a pretty full week. On Monday night, we had our City Council meeting, and I let my colleagues know I am a board member for Ralston House. Ralston House is a child advocacy center. They partner with law enforcement and social services to help provide a safe, comfortable home-like setting for children to give their forensic interviews if they have been either a witness to a violent crime or have been abused themselves. At our board meeting, we learned that there has been a huge surge in the number of children who have been fatally shot by other children due to poor gun storage. And so there was a request for us to help spread the word about the importance of gun safety and gun storage. And so brought that to my colleagues. I had all but one agree that we as a city should help promote that message. And that person wasn't even against it. They just wanted to touch base with some of their stakeholders to make sure it was something they were comfortable with. But it is something I'm just going to ask this group too. Every single one of those losses is a senseless tragedy that negatively impacts the family, that child who's lost forever, and the first responders, the police officers who have to respond to a call like that. It's very traumatizing. So just asking, please, if you are a gun owner, that's great. Just please be responsible with how you store your firearm. The next item I just kind of wanted to highlight, we had a pretty full agenda, but there was a lot going on. I'm only going to highlight a few things. We did have some, we had our finances, and it looks like Westminster is doing really well. We're actually on track to beat our 2019 sales tax revenue dollars by about 10% if the trend continues. So really rebounding from COVID, and that's wonderful. And I hope that that's also translating to your businesses. I hope you're also seeing a return to the volume that you had pre-pandemic. Another issue that I wanted to bring up is that we did approve our lease agreement for Kids Night Out. And that is a really fun program that allows parents to drop their kids off at our rec center. The kids are safe. They get to have a fun night. And parents, after a year and a half of a lot of togetherness, can have a probably overdue date night. So wanted to bring it up because I know that's a family favorite for us when our kids were younger. And I'm sure there's a lot of your viewers who could enjoy that. We also we did the first reading for one of our ballot initiatives, and that is going to be cleaning up just some charter language. I'll go into more detail about that here in a little bit. I want to highlight this. We got over $1 million in federal grants with zero matching from the city for a project that's going to improve roadways at 100th and Sims and Alkire. So I love when our staff successfully goes after grants, really make sure that we get our federal tax dollars back here in Westminster serving our residents. And also on the transportation front, I know this group did a lot of stakeholdering with the city to make sure that our transportation and mobility plans reflected your needs. And we did approve our transportation and mobility plan. We also had a non-binding agreement to go after, they're called WIFIA, or Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act loans. Just one more way that we're trying to make sure we lower all of the costs to improve and maintain our water system. And finally, this might be of note to your resident or to your members, we removed our emergency declaration as a city. And I had a little bit of pause. I had asked all of us, this had been on the agenda the week before, and I had asked all of us could we just hold off? Let's get all of the data, really understand both the trends that are going on now and how we as a city have been using this tool, and is this tool still relevant? And so while we are seeing a pronounced surge in COVID, the tool really isn't relevant at this moment in time. The one area that really there was some heartburn for me and other members of council is having the emergency declaration is how we were able to accommodate a lot of our restaurants into having in the parking lot or in public spaces, kind of expanding their patio footprint. So we did from the dais extend that through November, cleaning up the language, because we do want to make sure that we have the ability to keep your doors open if you're a restaurant. And even if we don't have capacity limitations, we recognize consumer taste and preferences. There might be a return to wanting to eat outside. So we just wanted to retain that tool. If the numbers continue to surge, if our staff feels they need the emergency declaration in order for us to respond in a way that protects our residents and protects our businesses, council at that time, I would issue a new emergency declaration, and council at that time would ratify it. So just want to make sure we're not sending mixed messages. We did move it, but that was because it wasn't a relevant tool at this point in time. If it becomes relevant again, we will bring it back. Are there any questions on that? Because I do know that can be confusing.
I don't see any questions on it. I do see a couple other folks like Tara that have tuned into the broadcast with us. Thank you, Mayor and all the counselors for extending that. That was an item as it relates to the outdoor temporary permit that we had encouraged and urged our economic development department city to extend past the September 30th deadline. So it was exciting to see you guys take that into consideration and support those local businesses. I see no questions, so let's just keep it going.
So then after the city council meeting, we still had a very full week. And I have to tell you, it was an absolute pleasure to attend and to speak at the State of the City. Juliet, you did an amazing job organizing that. I really was wonderful to be face-to-face with your membership. But I do know that we had some questions we weren't able to get to on stage that day, and wanted to see if you wanted to ask me anything.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mayor. It was a very well put together program. You were a huge positive addition to the program this year. So it's nice to be able to have you there and just to be able to get back to an in-person environment, taking in the considerations of COVID and still the world that we're in today. So very much appreciated that. We do have a couple of questions, and I've gone ahead and typed them out just so that we can have an opportunity to display them on the screen. So this year's State of the City allowed for not only our keynote address by our mayor, we also had a special feature by Adams County. And then immediately after, we did have a panel opportunity where all of those both of those speakers were there, in addition to our Adams County Chair person, Eva Henry, and our City of Westminster Manager, Don Tripp. There were two questions that we ran out of time with, believe it or not. And so what our mayor had suggested was, instead of even just putting that as answers on our Twitter, which we will be doing, that she would like to do this in person and be able to answer it for you all here in real time. So this is one of those questions that we had received, and it was in regard to how do we keep this community safe? The City of Westminster is seeing some transient people, an increase in transient people over the last year especially. And so what is the city doing in terms of maintaining our community safety, but also encouraging, connecting those transient people to the resources that they need so that they kind of move out into something that's better for them in the long run?
So this is a concern across the entire Front Range. We have seen an increase of individuals experiencing homelessness. And oftentimes that causes tension in a community when folks don't feel safe going to the park, right? When you have some of those public spaces that are being used in a way that's not typical, it can create some anxiety and some tension. And obviously we want to focus on public safety for everybody, including the folks that are experiencing homelessness. So the city continues to have our homeless navigators that will go and reach out to individuals within the community of folks experiencing homelessness, connecting them with services. I have joined mayors across the Front Range in taking a pledge called Built for Zero. And Built for Zero works on trying to eliminate homelessness using data-driven solutions and starting with one specific population, and that population happens to be veteran homeless. One of the cornerstones of this program is an HMIS, so an information system. So we fully understand, who do we have in our communities that are homeless? What are their needs? How do we connect them to services? How are they handling? Are they actually fulfilling that and going to services? And with this program, I just had an update at the Metro Mayor's Caucus on this. We have been incredibly successful of not just getting a complete count of our veteran homeless, but also already transitioning people off the streets and into supportive housing and programs. So the idea of this program is it is then scalable to different populations afterwards. In addition to that, in Jefferson County, we are looking at a regional approach to look at some shelter beds because we don't have any, right? We have a real lack of places for people to shelter. We don't have supportive housing or transitional housing for folks. And so looking, can we use some of this ARPA money to make some really formative change? So that's what we're doing, in addition to trying to make sure that we're still supporting people who might be having housing issues with assistance, trying to make sure there is a looming eviction. We're going to see mass evictions at some point, right? And so how are we going to handle that? I think we're trying to get ahead of that and plan for that as it comes down. So I'll remind you, we did have housing assistance throughout, using some of our CARES dollars for that. We continue our partnership with Maker on the Adams County side. We continue to use our HUD dollars to help people stay in their homes. But this is a tricky issue. And one of the things that we try to do is really understand that this is not a monolith. Folks experiencing homeless is not a monolith. And I just met with our homeless navigator and found that indeed the largest population in Westminster of folks experiencing homelessness are children. It is still K through 12 children that are the largest population in Westminster of homeless. So really heartbreaking when you think about that. I hope you feel that fully answers the questions, but as you can see, it is a huge problem and we are trying to be specific, intentional, and address it in multiple areas, both upstream and the immediate impacts on the community.
No, I think that was very well articulated and tackled. There are numerous nuances to this question, and so I was very appreciative that you shared. Here's kind of where we're at. Here's who are the players that are involved in it, and what our ultimate goal is, and some of those additional statistics of, a large percentage is Westminster children that are experiencing this. I believe this question came to us. My guess is from someone from our Government Affairs Committee, because this is the dialogue that's being spoken. And how does the business community support and play a role? So stay tuned.
Can I jump in on that?
Yes.
Because that is something, and I saw Mayor Pro Tem DeMont is on here now, and also Councilor Voles. But Mayor Pro Tem DeMont and I had a meeting with our homeless coordinators a while back, like I want to say 3 years ago. And one of the things that we learned is that if there is an encampment on private commercial property, the city doesn't have the authority to proactively go address that. We actually need partnership with the business owners, with the property owners, to alert us and ask us for help in those situations. And so at the time, Mayor Pro Tem DeMont and I had kind of wanted to see if we could get some education or messaging out to our business community about how best to address that issue, and recognizing the limitations the city has without their cooperation and coordination.
Absolutely. Well, that's perfect. It seems like we have these conversations separately, and this is exactly why we come together, so that we can bridge that gap that's there and provide some timely solutions. I do see Mayor Pro Tem DeMont on here with us. I also see our past board chairman, Brian Head. Councilor Voles is also on here, also sharing a great State of the City event. Enjoyed seeing everyone. Likewise, we enjoyed seeing you. And a follow-up comment that he had made as it related to the outdoor spaces. Again, very happy that you guys took that and kind of ran with it. That was almost an instantaneous. I believe I reached out the week before, and then you all voted on that the week after. And I think that speaks volumes for the business community that you were able to transition and come together to continue to support him during this time. There was a secondary question, and I'm looking for that question right now. I'll pull that up. If you are just now hopping on with us, we have our Mayor Anita Seitz, giving us an update on all things here in Westminster. We've touched briefly on COVID. We'll be going in a deep dive here in a little bit. We also touched a little bit about what last week looked like in terms of City Council, some of the items that they have been able to tackle. We now are transitioned into kind of post State of the City. We ran out of some time at that State of the City event. So these are a couple of the questions that were remaining for our mayor to answer. answer. But if you have any questions or there were things that you were hoping that we can address in this conversation today, make sure that you type it into the comment section of the broadcast. This question, again, we had talked a little bit about public safety during our event. It is asking, what is the city doing to attract police officers, as there's been a decline in our police force? And are there any updates as it relates to the police department's leadership, which we had talked about a few different broadcasts ago?
So I'll just start with the fact that I don't have an update right now on the city's police department leadership. That's kind of been an internal matter, and council hasn't been briefed on that in particular. And that is very typical. It's supported by our charter. We don't get the blow by blow of personnel issues. But the broader question about recruiting and retaining police officers, this is an issue that Westminster is facing, and it's a challenge, and it's important that we address it. But I do want to highlight that we're not alone. I had a meeting with a bunch of mayors in the Northwest region, and from Boulder, it's pretty ubiquitous. There is an issue right now with recruitment and retention of police officers, and I think a lot of that is the national conversation. Some of it is also, folks taking early retirement, but it is a tricky issue. But just because we're sharing in the pain with our neighbors doesn't mean we aren't trying to be innovative and aggressive in how we address it. And so council was made aware that the chief and our city manager are putting together some recruitment programs that include sign-on bonuses, just really quite a bit of additional effort, including increasing pay, to try to make sure that we're as competitive as a department as possible, but to make sure that we really understand the needs, the concerns, and the desires of our police department. Our city manager and our deputy city manager and our acting chief are meeting and going to roll calls and meeting with the FOP to try to fully understand, before we try to fix it completely, understand the issues and problems and pain points. So that's kind of where we're at right now. If Mayor Pro Tem or Councilor Voles want to type in on the chat any thoughts they have, but that is kind of actively going on right now. Obviously, we've heard as a city that there's a desire from our FOP to go into collective bargaining, and that's something that we're looking at as well.
Thank you for that answer. I do not see additional comments from either Councilor Voles or Mayor Pro Tem DeMott. Feel free to type anything in if you would like to, as it relates to either in addition to some of the information that our mayor has shared, or just as additional support to answering that question. Mayor, those were the remaining two questions for us from the state of the city. So I will yield the time back to you to continue to provide us with some updates, acknowledging that we still have a little bit of time left for our day. Oh, I do see Mayor Pro Tem DeMott quickly answered. Council certainly supportive of efforts to keep us competitive and police staff. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem DeMott. And that was a comment that was asked at the state of the city. Our mayor and our city manager had both answered to that tone as well.
Next, just wanted to say again, thank you for the state of the city, but that same evening, we had a second really fun event for the city. And this was the graduation of the inaugural class of our Civics Academy. So this was an 8-week program where residents came and really learned about the city. It was over 35 hours of going from department to department, understanding how they operate, kind of what's within their purview, their mission, and how they address that mission. This was a group of folks that really were passionate after doing the program about Westminster as a community, but Westminster as an organization. And really the pride they had for Westminster was palatable after the event. I made a suggestion that we should do video interviews afterwards, because I will tell you, it was chicken soup for the elected leader's soul, seeing how well people appreciated the level of service, the level of dedication and the level of expertise that our staff put into running the city. I do think, I kind of posed a question to each of them as they graduated. How are you going to get involved next? And I think we're going to be hearing some of those names again in the future, because I think people, once you get bitten by the bug, I think people want to get more involved. So that was really lovely. Counselor Voles is on here. I just want to give him credit for really pushing to get this program done. And she's not on here right now, but Cody Blue Herb did such an amazing job implementing that vision, and really the accolades on her level of organization and follow through cannot be overstated. People really enjoyed it. So unless there's any questions on that.
No questions. I see Councilor Voles just sharing that he encourages everyone to sign up for the program. And Mayor Pro Tem DeMont is also thanking the Chamber for the state of the city. Yes, thank you. Great feedback. Awesome.
I would like to give a COVID update. And it's sobering. It is not a good update. And I don't want to overstate it, but we are seeing an increase of hospitalizations in Colorado. So I'm going to go through some data with you. I've included links to news articles for it, so you can look for yourself. But Health One experienced a doubling of hospitalizations from COVID-19 in the past 20 days. Officials at Health One say 1 in 3 of those cases required ICU care, and 1 in 6 required a ventilator. Larimer County just this last Thursday reported 100% of intensive care unit beds were full. On Friday, it was down to 95%, but half of those patients were being treated for COVID. There are 81 ICU beds that are across 4 hospitals in Larimer County. All 81 beds were in use, with 44% of the patients being treated for COVID. So this is significant. I'm going to give you some other data here. UC Health has 230 patients hospitalized statewide who have tested positive for COVID-19 or have a test pending. So that's just one hospital system. The state of Colorado reported nearly 800 hospitalizations for suspected or confirmed cases of coronavirus on Friday. Numbers like that haven't been seen since January 21st. And across the state right now, 86% of our ICU beds are currently in use. So the Delta variant now accounts for 96.6% of all reported cases in Colorado, and only 67% of the state's population is fully vaccinated. So these are alarming numbers and these are alarming trends, particularly as you consider that our children are back in school, and we are seeing cases with even younger individuals being hospitalized. So I would ask us again to really focus on being good neighbors and protecting public health. And you wouldn't smoke next to somebody, particularly if it was a child or somebody with a breathing problem. I think we can just really try to be mindful of how our behavior and our choices impacts other people. I do want to go through data that's now specific to our counties. So the 7-day cumulative incidence per 100,000 people in Adams County is, and this is as of 8/28, so just yesterday or 2 days ago, is at 193.48. In Jefferson County, it's at 150.8, and that is from Friday, or that is from last Monday. They only update their numbers once a week, and it's on Mondays at 4:00. So every time I'm giving you data on this, it is a week late when it's on the Jeffco side. The 7-day average test positivity in Adams County is 9.18%. So that's pretty high. In Jeffco, as of last Monday, it was only 5.8%. Currently, as of the 28th, our ICUs beds are, and this includes both COVID patients and non-COVID patients, but our ICU beds were at 89.2% full with 10.8% capacity. And inpatient beds, so ICU, med surge, all of it, have a cumulative 87.4% full, 12.6% capacity. Right now, in Adams County, we have 105 folks who are either positive or assumed positives that are hospitalized in Adams County hospitals. So our hospitalization number, this is where we kind of monitor it, and after it gets to a certain number, we would go into from clear to blue. Jeffco has extended that order. Adams County, I don't believe they have, but that was at 0.8534. So we're still well below that threshold. But when we're looking at capacity, it's troubling. Still not as bad as other parts of the state, obviously not as bad as Larimer County, but I just think it's something we should be mindful of. In Jefferson County, the numbers as of last Monday were lower. There were only 36 individuals that were hospitalized with COVID, and the hospitalization rate was only at 0.72. So they don't give us much specific data on percent capacity that I've been able to find. But this is different. I just want to remind you that on July 22nd, that hospitalization rate per 100,000 over 14 days in Adams County was only 0.46. And in Jeffco, it was only 0.36. So a doubling in both. So just don't want to overly alarm people, but our goal is keep kids in school, keep businesses' doors open, and keep people safe. You are your own best tool to do that, right? If each of us recognizes that responsibility, I think we go a lot further at keeping the doors open and keeping the economy running and keeping schools in session. If anyone wants me to slow down, go over those numbers again, please let me know. I have included for Juliet to put in the chat the website for Tri-County Health, the website for Jefferson County Public Health, and for CDPHE. But I'm always happy to talk about these in more detail, but please recognize I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm not a public health official, but just want to keep you informed of the latest.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And those links have been included in the chat section. Tri-County Health Department. Of course, the numbers that were referenced in regard to Jeffco are also available via the link. The overall statewide data as it relates to COVID can also be found on the link that's included in this broadcast. If you just kind of scroll back once we are no longer live. Mayor Pro Tem DeMont did ask a question, and this relates to some of the bed usage that we did see an uptick in. His question is around some of the area states were using some of our spaces or hospitals, or we've heard or seen some of those news coverage. Do we know of the percentage that we were just reporting? How many of those are Colorado specific individuals, or some of them being from the outside states?
So it's interesting, Mayor Pro Tem would bring that up. I was actually curious, particularly because it was northern Colorado. I was wondering if there was a large influx of folks from Wyoming, where I do know, there's lower vaccination rates and less hospital availability. But I don't have, other than my suspicions, I don't have specific data. However, at my next public health meetings, I will ask that question if we can get a breakdown as to whether or not we know, are these people like medical, it's not medical tourism, but are these folks that are or Colorado residents versus folks who have reached capacity perhaps in their state and are coming in?
Excellent. Thank you for that question, Mayor Pro Tem DeMont and Mayor Seitz, and for both of you kind of having that thought in the back of your mind and trying to see as much in detail as possible to be able to provide those answers to our community. I know We are actually over our time, believe it or not, but we had a lot to cover today. And so I just want to thank all of you that were able to tune in with us. If you are watching this and we're no longer live, just reminding you that you can always still comment with a comment that you might have. If you had a question that you didn't get a chance to ask, you can still include it into the video or even DM the page directly so that we can get it answered by our mayor either before our next week broadcast or looped into the broadcast when we do go live into the future. If you've not already done so, hit the share button on this video. We had a lot of information that we touched on, and we just want as many people as possible to know about that. And of course, if you watch this and we're no longer live, we still want to know that you found this beneficial, so you can give us that hashtag replay. Mayor, thank you for spending another one of your mornings with us. We appreciate you. Last week's presentation was great. Again, we thank you for that partnership on the State of the City event, and of course, on all of your efforts to support the business community.
Thank you so much. And for anyone who didn't get their fill, we do have a special council meeting tonight and a study session. You can always tune in to get a little bit more Westminster.
All right. On that wonderful note, have a fantastic day.
Bye, guys.